My public speaking skills are minimal, so if I suck at this, sorry. I've got a bunch of tattoos. Like I said, I started getting tattoos when I was 18. Actually spent a little time learning to tattoo. Never bothered to pursue it full time, but did get okay at it. Dropped out. It happens. So when I was trying to prepare, I was like, well, shit, I've got a bunch of stories about my tattoos. What do I even share? Like, where do I start? Especially in a short amount of time frame. So I have to show it, and then I kind of picked one that I guess I just found, for me, one of the more culturally interesting. I have tattoos from very serious and heartfelt to I've got a scratch and sniff pig's ass in my armpit, so it kind of runs the gamut. I got Mr. Yuck in the other one. Anybody remember Mr. Yuck? It seems to be an Indiana thing. If you didn't grow up in Indiana, nobody knows who Mr. Yuck is. The joke gets lost sometimes. But specifically, the ones I wanted to talk about were these two. They're actually, they're called eggplant flowers from the Dayak tribe of Indonesia on the island of Borneo. I found this particularly fascinating. I'm really into, if there's two things that I'm into culturally and like to read a lot about, it's indigenous tribes and World War II. And where this kind of got really interesting is as I started to learn about the Dayaks of Borneo, the two worlds collided. So I initially found them fascinating, not just for being an indigenous tribe, but they were headhunters, and they like to cut people's heads off, and that's kind of cool to me. So
now we're worried.
That's a fascinating subject. I could ramble about that all day long too, but I won't. So I started learning about the tribe, and it's they live in these long houses and on the island of Borneo. They're like 20 feet in the air, and like an entire community will live in this one huge house, and they sit around and drink rice wine all night and get drunk and cut people's heads off. It's great. So as I started learning about them, I actually found out that like they don't practice head. They still exist, and you could actually go to Borneo and find these guys living in the same houses they've been living in for thousands of years with their elders and everything. But so during World War II, the Japanese started to invade Borneo and treated them very poorly. So they were definitely not on the side of the Japanese. There was a B-24 bomber that actually crashed in the around one of the communities in Borneo. And they ended up taking the soldiers in and basically, I believe they made like an airstrip out of bamboo, helped them repair their planes, and also started basically a conglomeration with the United States and I think Australia too, to basically fight against the Japanese. Another ironic thing about that, I have a lot of Japanese tattoos. If I ever go there, they'd probably kill me. Because they don't like the Japanese. They hated the Japanese because they were coming over and raping and pillaging and all that fun stuff that happens in war. So the American Army started teaching the Dayaks how to use guerrilla warfare to fight against the Japanese, and actually ended up being able to push the Japanese out of the island of Borneo, where we were able to then establish bases there, and the war went on, how it went from there. But this was also the last era where the tribe actually did their head hunting. And so like a tattoo like this, you wouldn't necessarily get in trouble for if you were not a native. It was basically their kind of like an identifying mark that like you're one of the tribesmen. In more primitive days, it's how they would identify what tribe you were from. They specifically had a tattoo where they basically get zigzags on their hands for every head they have taken. And to this day, some of the last remaining members, you can go down there and their entire fingers are just covered in zigzags from the heads of the shoulders, or heads of the Japanese soldiers they took. So there's actually a lot more to it. I encourage you to look it up if you're into that sort of thing. It's fascinating. And, what about?
Oh, you didn't do your makeup.
No, I will never do my back, actually. So this is why I like tattoo. I mean, so the story of why I get tattooed really isn't as fascinating. I like art, and if I put a bunch of it on me, I can always look at it. So there's really no point for me. I mean, I could get something really cool on my back, and that'd be great, but I'll never see it. So there's not really any point for me to get, because I like, you know, I still like to look at it. And that's my story. I put my shirt on the floor. Mr. Yuck, or that's the pig's ass. It's a scratch. And Mr. Yuck's over on this. He's a little smaller.
Nice Mr. Yuck. Yeah.
Mr. Yuck. Actually, there's a fun story behind this too. My uncle did this. He's a tattoo artist. And my grandmother swore to God that he would never lay a tattoo needle on my body. She, like, when I was like a little kid, she's like, Rick, if you ever touch him with a tattoo needle, I will kill you. And he actually didn't do this till maybe 3 or 4 years ago. You know, and I just went out and got tattooed anyway. My mom calls me her little coloring book. And, but no, he's a little flighty and likes to like not stay in one place very long. And I don't see him that often. But he came back to Indiana one year. He's like, "Hey, Kris, I'm back in town, man. You gotta let me tattoo you. You got all these tattoos, and your old Uncle Rick has not even put anything on you." And I'm like, "All right, cool. Like, I'll be down to Grandma's." And so there we are, and my mom brought it up. Like, I'm sitting in my grandma's kitchen with my Uncle Rick tattooing my armpit, and my mom's like, "Yeah, remember when you said that Uncle Rick would never touch him with the needle?" Well, he did the kitchen table. So, it was fun. Question?
That hurt.
Say what?
I bet it hurt. Did it hurt?
Actually, no, it didn't. I mean, it only took maybe 15, 20 minutes. It wasn't long. He kept fucking with me and trying to tickle me while I was doing it.
So, I guess my only question would be is what if, like, you start looking at it and you say, you know, I don't like this art anymore. I'm kind of tired of it. How do you remove it?
I've yet to get to that point. As he stated earlier, you know, when you get tattooed, or I guess both of you guys stated, when you get tattooed, like, it's always kind of part of, you know, like a time frame in your life. I've only covered up one tattoo. Well, in some scribble when I was learning, I would use my leg as like a scratch pad to kind of with the anticipation of I'm just going to color the whole thing black when I'm done. So, other than that, I haven't really covered anything up, and I've yet to regret anything. I don't ever really see myself as doing that, because, I mean, everything has meaning.
So you've done the armfolio in Japan. Have you looked at New Zealand with the Maori tattoos? And
I have they're not as aesthetically pleasing to me, so that's why I haven't got anything like that. But I am aware of it, and I've definitely looked at the art. The Japanese has kind of been my primary theme, and actually now I got this one, and most of them were hidden. My grandfather was a World War II vet that served in the Pacific Theater. I got this done, and I showed up for Christmas, and Kris, is that a fucking Jap on your arm? Yeah, Grandpa, it was your hard work that made this happen. So, but I had to wait for him to die to finish it. Now that he's dead, I can, which I haven't got to, because I wanted to add, like, this kind of theme is like good and evil. So it's still Japanese, but this is kind of inspired from Kill Bill, and it's kind of more the good side, and then I got the evil side, and so I wanted to do like the imperial flag and kind of have them all mixed in the middle. So now that he's dead, I can do that.
Do you ever think you'll take a trip there anywhere?
Oh, I'd love to. I don't want to go until I learn the language. I feel that I could go there and be a tourist, but I feel that I should have at least a decent understanding of the language before I ever go there. And I have no one to practice with, so I haven't really got far with that.